drive and nurse these Detroit hunks of iron, all with the same idea, trying to coax and work over their equipment so it'll get to that winner's circle. Me? I'm a racing mechanic who's traveled the circuit for, well, too many years to remember. NASCAR, USAC, IMCAR events. Brother, you name it, I've been there. Why? Well, I can't answer exactly. It's in our blood, I guess, as simple as that. And that goes for all of us. And it looks like the who's who of racing has turned out for the 500 this year. There's Joe Weatherly and Freddie Lorenzen, Troy Ruttman, guys like A.J. Foyt, all real good boys. But it's teamwork that wins races, and the mechanic is the other half of the Siamese twins of the racetrack. Take Dan Gurney with his chief mechanic John Holman of Holman and Moody, famed race modifiers. Dan and John are sizing up a Ford chassis that's been modified for the 500 in line with NASCAR specs. And here's Ralph Moody, chief mechanic for Fred Lorenzen. Another top man in the business, Ray Nichols. Cotton Owens, Smokey Unick, and Bud Moore, guys who've made their names as racing mechanics on tracks across the country. The mechanic's work begins in the race shop back home, tearing down, going over every inch of the engine from valve lifters to splash pan, in the search for perfection plus. That also means choice of the right components, including spark plugs with a kind of ceramic and pressure seal that can stand up to tremendous internal pressures. It's all part of winning performance and durability, along with the mechanic's know-how in engine assembly and tune-up. Always bearing in mind, a pair of eagle eyes will be on you to see that NASCAR rules are respected. Here, for example, Glenn Wood submits his engine head for a cubic displacement measurement. The test is simple. A piece of glass seals the cylinder head cavity. Then liquid from a graduate flows in. Believe me, it had better accept no more than the right amount, or, brother, you've had it. Will it go over? Well, I've been in the same spot, and I know how Glenn feels. Okay, Glenn, you've made it. But that's only the beginning of NASCAR's inspection. Here, a carburetor sealed after meeting specs. And here, road clearance checked. Oh, say, there's Bill Strop, chief mechanic of the Merck team with Fran Hernandez. Right now, their crew's about to stage a pit rehearsal, another mighty important job of the mechanic. Any driver will tell you how many races he's won or lost in the pits. Roger Ward, last year's Indianapolis winner, lends a hand. 30 seconds for a right side tire change and refuel jobs, only par for the course. Oh, you can fry your hands on those tires, but for Pete's sake, don't panic. If you do, you're dead. Get him in and out fast, boys, and pray. And when you're playing for keeps, he don't come back too soon. Here's Tiny Lund getting set for a practice run. Tiny's a story every racing buff knows. The guy who saved Marvin Panch's life by lifting a burning car off him. A superhuman effort. Anyway, as a reward, Marv, from his hospital bed, gave Tiny a chance to drive his car in the 500. Right now, Tiny's out to check the performance of his entry. Looks like Glenn Wood isn't too happy. You know, without the push of competition, it's tough for a driver to give his best. They say racing's half the driver, half the equipment, and the mechanic. Now, right now, one or the other's not putting out. Which is it? Well, there's one sure way to find out. Over at the dynamometer, built by Autolite right here at the Daytona track. Service offered to everybody as a way of diagnosing trouble when a car's not putting out top performance. The drive shaft of Tiny's car is hooked up and ready to roll. Racing's Dr. Kildare, alias Bruce Thomas, head of Autolite's dynamometer team, goes to work. But Instead of scalpel, needle, and sutures, Bruce will be measuring foot-pounds of torque to be converted to horsepower as the dynamometer simulates a car running full power on the track. Sure enough, something's wrong. Now, what is it, Doc? Carburation? Ignition? Bruce knows where to look. In no time at all, the distributor's been removed to be checked inside the Autolite facility. The machine will turn the distributor at any given RPM, just like in the engine, telling the degree of dwell. The build-up set of points are blocked off. And now the brake set's adjusted. Ah, that's more like it. Meanwhile, another seed of trouble's been detected. Diagnosis: the wrong heat range for the plugs. Prescription: a new set of plugs with the right heat range. One of Autolite's complete line of plugs to match engine requirements of any make of car. Now, let's see what happens. Dynamometer is setting up resistance and load factors equal to 168 per, and the engine is eating it up. You almost don't need gauges with smiles like that. Now look at Tiny tear up the track. You know, racing's more than just trying to reach that winner's circle. Because sure enough, over the years, racing's left its mark on your car and mine. Every major automotive development in the past half-century owes something to lessons learned from professional auto racing. So whether or not it percolates into your pretty little head, honey, me and my buddies hold your IOU for your rear view mirror, your padded dashboard, recessed steering wheel, safety glass, bucket seats and seat belts, four-wheel brakes, wider tires. All improvements that came out of racing. Finally, it's race day for the Daytona 500. Thousands and thousands of fans have swarmed in from all over the country. Come to see, as the newspaper fellas say, a spectacle without rival, along with all the pageantry that goes with it. Everything from a bunch of cuties to 77 trombones and a big brass band. Also present and accounted for, the gendarmerie on a policeman's holiday. There's Autolite's racerettes. Cute, huh? And of course, the usual clown act, but the crowds eat it up. Plenty of celebrities on hand. Here's Florida's Miss Smile. And Miss Florida herself. Racing's own Tom McCahill. And Mr. Benson Ford, Vice President of the Ford Motor Company. Bill France, President of NASCAR and the Daytona Speedway. Jack French, General Manager of Autolite. Well, the cars are lined up and ready to go. But man's best laid plans sometimes go astray, and racing's no exception. For as race time approached, along came an uninvited guest. Yep, you guessed it, a man-sized gale blowing in from the ocean, bringing buckets of rain and sending some 75,000 fans scooting for shelter. Rain, rain, go away. But given time, and a true race fan will wait till doomsday if need be, the weather will let up, bringing between the clouds a peak of sunshine. In fact, 2 or 3. The crowd's back, and with the decision to start the race after a 2-hour delay, the cars themselves will dry the track. For safety's sake, the first 10 laps are run under the caution light held at 90 miles per. On the 11th lap, with the track dry and safe, the wraps are taken off, and they're away. Hey, Buster, wake up. They're off and running. Junior Johnson doesn't waste any time getting out in front. Right behind him is Paul Goldsmith, followed by Fred Lorenzen and Fireball Roberts, number 22, in a Pontiac. In the home stretch, it's Johnson and Goldsmith. Boy, are they burning up the track. Speeds over 166 per. On the backstretch, Goldsmith's drafting on Johnson's car. Drafton is riding the guy's tail as close as 6 inches. Actually, both cars will go faster, but the first car's doing most of the work and therefore using more gas and saving gas for the hitchhiker. Here comes Lorenzen, number 28. Keep an eye on him. There's a smoker right in front of the stands. Lap after lap, guys back in the pack jockey for position. Uh-oh, Goldsmith's out on the 41st lap with a bad oil leak. It's A.J. Foyt in the lead with Fireball Roberts riding his win streak. On the backstretch, Dick Petty in a 63 Plymouth battles it out with Dan Gurney driving a 63 Ford. Hey, watch out! Johnny Rutherford, number 13 in the Chevy, spins on the backstretch. The lead keeps changing hands as they roar past the stands. In fact, the lead will keep on changing as car after car goes into the pits. Here comes Fireball Roberts into the pits. Parnelli Jones, number 15 in a 63 Merc, he needs gas and oil. Meanwhile, G.C. Spencer in a 63 Chevy takes the lead. His car's number 03. In front of the stand, Spencer and Foyt put on a great show for the lead. And there they go on the turn, while right behind them come Dan Gurney and Fred Lorenzen. Now Spencer's given up the lead as he's forced into the pits. Oh, he's got company. Darrell Derringer in his 63 Merc. All through the race, the pit crews are kept busy. Here's A.J. Foyt getting gas. Rex White, 63 Chevy, steaming. Wow, look at that skid. It's Jim McGurk in a 62 Pontiac. It's Lorenzen and Bobby Johns having a private Donnybrook for the lead. Now 200 miles of the race are over at an average speed of over 140 per. Uh-oh. Dick Good, number 81, spins into the guardrail. Parnelli Jones misses him by a whisker. Oh, the crowd's getting a real thrill. A hot engine and climbing the carburetor has started a fire. It's spread to the clothes of his chief mechanic, Bobby's old man. The race is past the 300-mile mark now, with Ned Jarrett and Fred Lorenzen passing the lead back and forth. On the 157th lap, Lorenzen is forced into the pits. It's Tiny Lund now, showing his heels to the pack. Back to the wars goes Lorenzen. He's got to get his speed back. It's so late in the day, it's almost dark in the pits as Tiny comes in. And sure enough, Lorenzen's back in front with Ned Jarrett on his tail. Out of the pits comes Tiny Lund, as you can guess his intentions. Meanwhile, in the sunset, Stacy and Frank battle each other on the backstretch. Lund's running second now with Ned Jarrett trailing. But Fireball Roberts won't be beaten, not by a long shot. But it's still Lorenzen first and Lund second. Lorenzen's crew wants him in the pits. You better listen to him, Fred, even if there's only 7 laps to go. A 9-second pit stop for gas, and Lorenzen's out again. Lund's hanging on to that lead with Jarrett trapped him. Time's crucial now. Will Lorenzen be able to get back his lead? Jarrett, on the 197th lap, he needs gas. Now, Tiny, it's up to your gas tank. Lorenzen's hot after him, though, but it's a 3-cornered race because Jarrett is back again. Lorenzen's pit crew have their fingers crossed. But it's Tiny with Lorenzen right behind. There's the white flag. Will Tiny's gas hold out? His pit crew's with him all the way. But Lorenzen and Jarrett haven't given up. Yes, sir, a duel right to the finish. And it's Tiny Lund, a long shot. Winner over Fred Lorenzen with Ned Jarrett third, all 3 driving 63 Fords. As Tiny, now out of gas, has to coast into the winner's circle. He took a big chance, but one less pit stop made the difference. Good job, Tiny. You deserved it. And I know Marvin Pants was rooting you all the way home. There's the usual ceremonies for a really bushed but happy winner. And to share their well-earned victory, here's Tiny's pit crew and the very proud Wood brothers. And speaking of sharing and victory, let's not forget, you know who. In fact, 8 out of the first 10 cars were equipped with Autolite spark plugs. Well, time to hit the trail again. For that's the life of the driver-mechanic team. Moving around, living out of a suitcase, as off to the races we go. And now, at last, the famous old Brickyard, where every year since 1911, with the exception of a few war years, the legendary giants of the automotive world have fought it out on the curves and straightaways of the world's best-known speed arena. It's the first day of the time trials for this year's race, and over 250,000 race fans have crammed into the grandstands and infield of this great racing plant. Plenty of thrills and chills for them here today. Right now, the cars are lining up for the qualification runs. Most of them are the conventional Speedway Roadsters powered by the famous Meyer-Drake four-cylinder Offenhauser engine. But the powerful Novis are back again this year. This one, number 56, will be driven by heavy-footed Jim Hurtubise. Two others by Art Malone and Bobby Unser. But the real attraction this year is the new Lotus Ford rear-engine creation. These cars are only knee-high and streamlined to the nth degree. Benson Ford, vice president of Ford Motor Company, and Ed Stroh of the Autolite division are truly proud of these new racers powered by Ford. Driver Dan Gurney and designer Colin Chapman look on as their car is prepared for the qualification run. Veteran driver Eddie Sachs welcomes Ford into this exclusive racing circle. And now, Dan Gurney in the Lotus Ford receives his final instructions from Chief Steward Harlan Fingler. The crowd's really anxious to see these Fords perform. And there he goes. Dapper Dan Vidan, official starter, has the green flag ready, and Gurney takes it. USAC officials electronically record the speed of every lap. Here he roars, or whines down the main stretch. He's completed the lap at over 149 miles per hour. And another lap at 149.353. Living up to his expectations, the crowd gives Gurney a big hand as he rolls into the pits. Average four-lap speed qualifying time, 149.019 miles per hour. Jimmy Clark, Grand Prix driver from Scotland, is ready in his Lotus Ford number 92. The green flag is out, and Jimmy takes it. The timers clock him as he screams past the crowd and completes a lap of 150+ miles per hour. Another lap over 149 assures Jimmy a starting position in this year's 500. Looks like J.C. Agajanian is about to ask Benson the price of these new Ford racing engines. Wholesale price, that is. You know, all during qualifying, Gasoline Alley is just as busy as it is out on the track. Gassing up. Last-minute changes. Precious, minute adjustments for that important fraction of a second that could very well be the difference between the first or the 11th row, or for that matter, maybe no row at all. And that really builds pressure and tension, and the waiting doesn't help either. You can see the strain on their faces. It's a serious business, a whole career, a year of preparation, and thousands of dollars are up for grabs. So relax, buddy. It's all up to you now. And now, at last, this is the day. Bands, marching feet, Majorette Golden Girl from Purdue, actor George Montgomery from Hollywood, astronaut Gordon Cooper from space, and racers from out of this world. Oh, it won't be long now. The drivers are getting ready. Goggles, handkerchiefs, cold cream. Anyway, they're ready for those famous words. Gentlemen, start your engine. The traditional balloons are released, and the cars move out. This is the pace lap, nice and easy. You're looking at more than $1 million worth of racing cars. Pace car pulls out, and they're off. Parnelli Jones grabs the lead with Jim Hurtubise right on his tail. It's Jones, Hurtubise, Bobby Marshman, and Roger Ward on the backstretch. Hurtubise is trying hard for that lead. And in the home stretch, Hurtubise passes Jones. He's in the lead. They come neck and neck. Jones has the inside track and takes the lead back. Wow, Bobby Unser hits the wall and is out of the race. He's getting out of his car and is okay. Now Roger McCluskey has moved into second place. Hurtubise is passing McCluskey for second. Uh-oh, a car in trouble. It's Bud Tingelstad in car 54. He's okay. And here's a wall climber. It's Alan Grove. He's lost a wheel. Well, the crowd's getting plenty of excitement today. Jones is in for his first pit stop. McCluskey grabs the lead with Clark and Gurney close behind. Jim Clark takes second as they roar past the stands. Jones goes right out again to do battle for that lead spot. But Jim Clark and his Lotus Ford takes the lead. It's Clark first, McCluskey second, with Gurney coming up fast. The crowd's rooting for the Fords. McCluskey's in the pits. And the Lotus Fords are running 1 and 2. Jim Clark and Dan Gurney lead the race. But McCluskey's right back out to try and catch Clark and Gurney, but they're setting a torrid pace, and the crowd loves it. Here's Gurney's scheduled pit stop. The Fords run on pump gas and get good mileage. Only one pit stop is planned for the whole race. Clark's still in the lead. Eddie Sachs is trying to pass McCluskey in the backstretch. It's now the 96th lap. Clark goes in for tires and gas. Uh-oh, he stopped short of the hydraulic platform and they have to push him on. That could be expensive. Jim has been leading for 28 laps, and that's a great record for a rookie driver and a rookie car. The car is real lightweight and easy on tires. This change should last the rest of the race. Look out, a spin in the pits. It's Jim McElreath. He came in pretty hot, too hot. That got him on their feet. Jones got back the lead when Clark was in the pits, but Clark is fighting his way back through the pack. A spin on the north curve. It's Eddie Johnson in car 88. Looks like he's had it. The caution light is on, and Jones takes advantage of it for a pit stop. A quick tank of gas, a set of tires, and he's back out. Clark has to hold position under the yellow and can't grab the lead. But there's the green flag, and they're running hard again. P.J. Foyt and Eddie Sachs duel on the backstretch. Uh-oh, Dan Gurney's in for an unscheduled pit stop. His right front wheel is loose. Wasn't replaced tight enough. Too bad. Jones has only a 3.5-second lead over Jim Clark. There's a spin. It's Eddie Sachs. Too bad. He's been driving hard and pushing the leaders all day. They're towing him off. No, it looks like he's trying to start his engine. It started. How about that? Sachs is going back in the race. Looks like the action has moved to the stands. It's Colin Chapman. He's detected oil leaking from Jones' car and is a bit unhappy. Now there's a real rhubarb. The question whether or not to black flag Jones. But the decision keeps Jones in the race. Oh, no, it's Sachs again. He's lost a wheel. Eddie's really had it this time. Look, the wheel's still rolling. Get out of there, Eddie. Attaboy. The end is near, and it's still Jones. Can Jimmy Clark catch him? Roger McCluskey's running third. Here's the white flag. One more lap to go. running out, and Providence takes over. Oh, no, McCluskey's spinning. It's the last lap, and he had third place sewed up. What a tough break. The checkered flag is out, and Parnelli Jones wins the race. Jim Clark in the Lotus Ford takes second. And here he comes, the winner, heading for victory lane, the man himself, Parnelli Jones, a deserving winner, a great driver. Average speed, 143.137 miles per hour. It's a new record for the Indianapolis 500. Congratulations, Parnelli.
With today's high-speed turnpikes and superhighways, the engineers are also concerned with highway performance. That includes passing, acceleration tests. The quicker you can accelerate around another car, the safer it is to pass. High-performance cars shorten required passing time and distance. With proving ground testing, you can compress thousands of miles of normal driving into several hours. In a single year, it adds up to 18.5 million miles of test driving. Today, even all that punishment is not enough to satisfy the engineer's desire for total performance. To them, nothing is really total until there is no place else to go. They've found someplace else to go here. It's the ultimate proving ground, the competitive event. Because these events all make different demands on a car, they are of particular interest to the engineer. For instance, the brutal Riverside, California 500-mile race, an arduous serpentine course that subjects the cars to continuous punishment for brakes, steering, and suspension systems. The same is true of the Daytona 500 held at the International Speedway, and the Firecracker 400, also run at the Daytona Speedway, a 2.5-mile high bank course. This is the fastest stock car track in the world. Pikes Peak, a supreme test of rugged roadability. The famous Monte Carlo Rally, where in 1963, America was represented by 3 entries. Because of the rigorous mountain driving conditions, average speed was only 38 miles per hour. The U.S. entries finished 1-2 in their class. The Pure Oil trials, an excellent test of economy, acceleration, and braking ability. Drag races too numerous to count, where total performance is a must for victory. Why are total performance cars top choices among competitive event drivers? And what does racing do for the family car? After 16 years of driving in competitive events, here is one man who knows. Curtis Turner is one of America's best racing drivers. He has won more than 350 races, a record among competitive stock car drivers. As a professional race driver, Curtis Turner appreciates everything that total performance engineering really means.
Race driving is just like anything else. If you have confidence in your car and yourself, it's always possible to win. If you don't have confidence, victory is practically impossible. Winning a stock car race takes a lot more than just a hot car. Everybody starts the race, but it takes a combination of many things to finish. Sure-footed roadability, rugged axles and suspension, dependable brakes and steering, instant engine response, economical performance plus long life durability, all the things, in fact, that everybody needs in a family car today, beefed up for racing purposes. In any race, whatever helps my stock car win helps the family car run better and safer too. I'll drive 500 miles in one race at speeds up to 160 miles an hour. That's like years of normal driving on the family car's suspension and engine. Or take brakes. Braking at 150 miles an hour used to burn up our inner tubes and blow the tires. Not anymore. The engineers licked the heat problem for us. Same with the cooling system. A few years ago, we'd be boiling over in 10 minutes at top speeds. Today, we can run all day wide open, even on the hottest summer days. Same with the frame, axles, wheels, differential, you name it. Racing places uncommon stresses on these components. The engineers figured out why and designed new total performance components, and the public got the benefit.
Curtis Turner has a point. Competitive events are important because the public always wins. What the engineers learn at the track eventually shows up on the highway in safer, better, more dependable family cars. Seat belts, padded dash, rear view mirrors, four-wheel brakes, and many other safety features all had their beginning on the racetrack. The engineer, in quest of total performance, developed new high-tensile metals and forging techniques that strengthened the blocks on engines designed for competition, as well as those destined for the showroom. The same story is told over again in a new, more precise steering geometry, the development of hydraulic shock absorbers, pneumatic tires, independent suspensions, and sturdier underbody and frame. The extremely rugged straddle-mounted pinion gear also grew from these total performance requirements. And many new engine features that give you better, more efficient, and more economical performance today are a result of the constant search for improvement. Cross-bolted main bearing caps for longer life under turnpike driving speeds. Stronger, tightly grained pistons and connecting rods, more precisely made and balanced for smoother, high-speed performance. Wedge-shaped combustion chambers for most efficient use of fuel. Better carburation for easier starting, smoother going, better passing. What precisely is the total performance engineer's problem today? Well, you might put it this way. Back in 1903, a man named Barney Oldfield drove Henry Ford's 999 Racer an astounding 60 miles per hour. Going like 60 is still heard round the world. 60 years later, a Ford-powered Lotus race car tools around the Indianapolis Speedway at a blistering average speed just under 150 miles per hour. In this hurry-up world of expressways, turnpikes, and superhighways, the engineer concerned with total performance has problems that lie somewhere in between. There's no Barney Oldfield at the wheel, and there's no Curtis Turner. There's just some guy named Joe and his family. They're headed who knows where or when. In any age, the automobile is the product of its time. to build a car that can be driven safely and satisfactorily by anyone in the world, and that anyone can afford to own. This is the engineer's goal, the constant challenge for total performance.
This is a drag strip. There are over 400 such strips in the United States. More than 5 million people follow drag racing, and there are 200,000 cars and drivers that currently compete in drag racing meets across the country. 1,320 feet, a quarter of a mile. If you were driving down this strip of pavement in your family sedan at 60 miles an hour, it would take you 15 seconds to cover the distance. If you began from a standing start at the beginning of the quarter mile, it would take you longer. This man is a drag racer. His great enthusiasm in life is reducing that length of time. He is one of thousands of people whose hobby, in many cases whose single goal, is to go from a standing start to the finish line 1,320 feet away faster than anyone else can. This is drag racing. Imagine you are in your family sedan, again, holding a steady 60 miles an hour. You pass one of these cars waiting at the starting line, and you hold your steady 60. If the driver of the dragster started as you passed, he would pass you in little more than 800 feet. In fact, if you were holding a steady 120 miles an hour, he would still catch you within the quarter mile. And he'd be doing close to 200 miles an hour when he did. That is acceleration. Drag racing is a peculiarly American sport, American in origin and American in development. But this is a British crowd, and some of the cars are British. Drag racing is now going international. Recognition has recently been granted the sport by the International Automobile Federation, or FIA. And this is the first British International Drag Racing Festival held in the late summer of 1964. The event was a huge success, and we'll cover it in detail and get British reaction to the sport. But let's go back to the point of origin and get some American background first. We're at Pomona, California for the 1964 NHRA Winter Nationals, one of two main annual events in drag racing in the United States. 75,000 spectators are here, and 500 competitors from all over the United States and Canada. All the top names in drag racing are here, plus a lot of novices who want to take a crack at the champions. Amateurs compete against professionals in drag racing, and the man with the best equipment, the most skill, and sometimes the most luck wins. He isn't necessarily always from the ranks of the established champions. Nevertheless, there are established favorites whose past performances have caused them to be expected to win. Men like Len Richter, with his Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt, powered by a 427 cubic inch high riser Ford engine, in the super stock class for cars with stick shift. Or 68-year-old Sam Perio of the City of Industry, California, one of the grand old men of drag racing, with his Ford-powered Curtis and A modified sports car. Billy Cox is here, competing in Class A stock automatic. Later in the year, he'll switch to factory experimental cars and continue to be a big threat. And Gas Ronda is here to compete on his way to becoming World Point champion in stock cars in 1964. All the hoopla and ballyhoo of a state fair is in the air, plus all the excitement of motorsports. Miss Hurst Floorshift of the Hurst Performance Products Company graces afloat in the infield. Drag racing is essentially a simple sport, driving in a straight line from a standing start for a quarter of a mile. When you're sitting behind 1,400 horsepower, nestled in a 1,300-pound car, just going straight becomes a very busy pastime. In the faster unlimited classes, anything goes as long as safety precautions are followed, including twin engines and even an occasional four-engine job. Here an engine explodes when the driver over-revs on the starting line. Accidents do happen in the highly stressed cars, but the rules are devised to avert turning this kind of misadventure into tragedy. And it is a tribute to the sport's organizing bodies that drag racing has a better safety record than any other kind of motor racing. Even though the cars are so fast in the dragster classes that parachutes are used to help stop them. Now we're in the staging area where the cars get in line for their runs. Ronnie Socks moves up to the line. The cars are started by the Christmas tree, an anticipated start system that tells the driver when he can go and automatically disqualifies him if he starts too early. The green light starts the clock, and an electric I-beam stops it, so elapsed time can be measured to the thousandth of a second. While a flashing arrow points to the winner's lane, so the crowd at the starting line and in the stands can tell who wins the close ones. The cars are divided roughly into stock cars, sports cars, factory experimental cars, coupes and sedans, roadsters, and the out-and-out dragsters, sometimes called slingshots or rails. Special classes are set up for cars that are modified from stock mechanically, that have modified bodywork or are homemade. In addition, cars are divided by whether they run on gasoline or exotic nitrate-based fuels. And further division is made on the basis of pounds per cubic inch displacement. So classification gets complicated. There are currently 74 divisions and classes of cars competing in the United States. Let's take a ride with Len Richter in his Thunderbolt. Watch Len go through the gears. The car competes in the top stock eliminator division and can usually be depended upon to cover the standing quarter mile in just under 11 seconds. The dragsters go even faster. With direct drive, there's usually no gear shifting. Here's a driver's eye view of the quarter-mile drag strip, covered in about 8 to 9 seconds, filmed from an actual run. And to give you an idea how fast the car accelerates, let's look back over the driver's shoulder as he blasts away from the starting line. These AA fuel dragsters are producing on the order of 1,400 horsepower, and managing one of them under full throttle is no job for the faint of heart. The other premier event in American drag racing is the Nationals, held at Indianapolis Raceway Park, Indiana. In 1964, this event drew more spectators and entrants than Pomona, with 123,000 fans watching 1,250 cars compete over the 5-day event. Indianapolis in the summertime is a picnic-like setting, and thousands of Americans at their leisure came to watch the fun. But while a drag race can seem like a social event, the real stars are the cars themselves. Every unusual and ingenious concoction of American backyard engineering seems to be here. Meticulously prepared, often on shoestring budgets, designed only after exhaustive examination of the regulations, and usually after at least a couple of years of hard-earned experience at the drag strips are accumulated. The cars take all shapes and sizes, but are aimed finally at a single goal: acceleration. The most acceleration that it is possible to achieve within the framework of the division or class in which the car runs. The goals of a drag racing builder are as single-minded as the sport itself, and the means to reach those goals are exceedingly complex. In general, the principle is to get as much power as possible to the wheels, maximum traction between the wheels and pavement, and as little superfluous weight as possible for the power to move. Thus, the builder soups his engine as much as he can within the regulations for his class. He moves everything as far back as he can to put more weight on the rear wheels for traction. And he fits the largest tires permitted at the rear to get more rubber on the ground. No starter is carried on the out-and-out dragsters. The extra weight isn't worth it in a car that is hardly going to be used for shopping. That's why you see so many of these cars being push-started. As it happens, these cars seldom travel under their own power at all, except when actually racing. Radiators aren't usually carried either. In a 10-second run, cooling isn't very important. In fact, if you realize that a dragster is seldom running except at full throttle and in as straight a line as possible, you can readily see that a lot of life's little amenities can be left off. Despite the sometimes backyard nature of some of the cars, they represent the very highest sort of engineering within their limited goals. Engine tuning techniques, for example, are as highly developed among American drag racers as anywhere in the world. In every sense of the word, the drag racers are carrying on their own basic research. But research is a two-way street. Here, technical representatives of the Autolite division of Ford Motor Company consult with car owners, including Jack Chrisman of the well-known Saxon Son 427 Comet. Many major automotive manufacturers cooperate with organized drag racing as another research tool to supplement their own development and testing work. This experience gained at the racetrack will eventually filter its way into the products on the road. All cars must undergo an intensive technical and safety inspection for possible flaws that could eventually prove hazardous. At the same time, the cars are classified. It's a family sport. This husband and wife team won the award at Indianapolis for the best appearing car at the meet, thanks in part to her efforts. Tension begins to build. Everything is checked 100 times, then once more. Critical tire pressures, which have to be just right to get the maximum traction, are checked. The cars are moved slowly to the staging area, preparatory to making their initial runs. The drivers begin getting ready. Time trials are run to assist the drivers in getting the feel of the track surface that they will be working with and to aid last-minute tuning. Variations in temperature and humidity can mean a difference of hundredths of a second, so some changes have to be made for every race. And the tension continues to build. The drivers of the big exotic fuel dragsters don their flame-proof suits and masks, an extra precaution against accidents like the one we saw earlier that could envelop them in flames. Here, Connie Kalita, one of the most successful of the dragster drivers, prepares for a run. But mostly everyone just waits. Then come time trials, practice runs, and the actual elimination runs. Trophies are awarded for the fastest elapsed times, fastest trap speeds, and top eliminators. Drivers who have been successful in more of the head-to-head confrontations with other drivers in their class, but who haven't necessarily posted lowest times or fastest speed. Here we see an older model gas class coupe running a time trial simultaneously with George Montgomery's very successful Class A supercharged coupe, which uses a 34-tube body with a 402 cubic inch V8 engine. Supercharging is used to increase the power tremendously. Accordingly, cars with superchargers are raised to the next higher class than their engine size would ordinarily put them in. Almost all of the big unlimited dragsters are supercharged. The Indian directing traffic is Bob Beezer from Canada. a full-blooded Deseranto, he is brought to every major drag meeting in the United States by the National Hot Rod Association, not only to add color to the proceedings, but because a drag meeting has never been rained out while he was in attendance. He calls to the line the Bob Ford 427 Mustang, driven by Ken Salter. Mustang wins. The time trials and elimination runs go on. Everyone runs. For trophies, for cash, and for awards in equipment that consist of everything from wrenches and spark plugs to complete cars. But let's go back to England and see how the tight little islands respond to this heretofore American sport. The British turn out in droves for England's first real taste of American drag racing. Similar events here in the past have been referred to as sprints, or simply acceleration trials, but they've been pretty well restricted to English machines. So this is the first glimpse for the British of such single-purpose machines as this dragster owned by Doug Church from Long Beach, California, or Tony Nancy's Wedge 2. The scene in the pits is almost precisely the same as it would be for an American meet, although the dress and the accents are different. Here, Don Garlitz, the big daddy of American drag racing, repacks his parachute in preparation for an all-out run in his Windjammer. Don is the first person to consistently break 200 miles per hour in the quarter mile. If the English think the American cars are strange looking, the corresponding reaction must be recorded on the part of the American team. The English, liking the duty-free manufacturing sources of drag racing equipment and parts presently manufactured primarily in the United States, tend to race more different kinds of vehicles than even the Americans do. Former Grand Prix cars, go-karts, motorcycles, even a 1914 French Métallique appear in the pits. Motorcycles in particular are very popular, and when adapted for drag racing, provide wild and exciting action. This determined Englishman brings his machine to the line and gets off to a fine run. Wonder how many trips to the quarter mile he gets to a pair of shoes. American Bill Wood, on his modified Harley-Davidson, demonstrates his machine for the British. Although the English racing fans have had considerable experience with acceleration trials, they certainly had never seen anything like the all-out dragsters of Tony Nancy and Tommy Ivo. Nancy's Wedge 2, with rear engine and full streamlining, is one of the most technically advanced cars in the business, and the Britishers were quite impressed by its outstanding performance. Popular Tommy Ivo, the American TV personality, was also a great favorite. Here he does a wheel stand. The tremendous power of the car actually lifting the front wheels off the ground at the start on the way to another impressive run. To give the English version of such activities, Sidney Allard's Ford Cortina-powered Dragons were demonstrated. Here, motoring journalist Dennis Jenkinson gives the supercharged 1.6-liter or 91 cubic inch dragster a try. Alan Allard, son of the famous racing car designer, takes his Dragon to a remarkable quarter-mile time of 11.11 seconds with a trap speed of 129 miles per hour. Bad for an engine less than a fourth the size of the big American dragster. And so drag racing goes international. The impact of these meetings will be felt throughout the coming years, and it is hoped that the exchange of teams will continue in the future. Certainly the English got a look at some interesting machinery, and so did the Americans for that matter. You can depend on one thing. The equipment prepared for similar future meetings will be every bit as interesting and spectacular. In meeting the challenge of that short quarter mile, anything Absolutely anything goes. In drag racing, success comes from constant practice, constant testing, and constant endeavor to find a way to pare hundredths, even thousandths of a second off elapsed time. The men who are dedicated to this sport are professionals who are completely in earnest, completely serious, and highly safety conscious. They work hard in search of perfection, in search of an ever faster quarter mile. A mere 1,320 feet.